Some people have something different in them, an invisible thread of resilience that holds firm, even when life hits them like a hurricane. They lose everything. The bank accounts vanish. The family turns cold. They're slandered, humiliated, even erased from the memories of the very people they once helped. And still, they don't crumble. It's not magic. It's not apathy. It's not even stoicism. It's that somewhere along the way, they stopped outsourcing their identity to the world around them. They quit letting the opinions, expectations, and projections of others define them. That's the difference. Most people are still reacting, still scanning the world like it's some kind of approval machine, waiting for a signal that they're enough. One ignored text message, and they're spiraling. One cold glance, one misinterpreted tone, and suddenly, their inner world collapses. And it's not because the world is cruel, though sometimes it is. It's because the world is acting as a mirror. It's poking at the spots you haven't healed. It's not a villain, it's a teacher. And every reaction you have is a lesson in disguise. Carl Jung said it best. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That quote lives rent-free in your nervous system every single day. Because here's the hard truth. Nothing outside of you has the power to affect you unless it finds something inside you to cling to. And when it clings, it controls. That's how wounds work. They're magnets for pain. And until you tend to them, life will keep throwing the same lessons at you, over and over, like waves hitting the shore. Most people never figure that out. They go their entire lives reacting to shadows, ghosts of old memories, half-healed stories, childhood blueprints playing out on a loop. But if you're here, really here, then maybe you're ready to see it differently. Maybe you're ready to finally unplug from the illusion that you need to fight the world to be free. Because freedom doesn't come from fighting. It comes from seeing. Seeing what's real. Seeing what's not you. You were trained, yes, trained to overthink, to feel guilty for feeling anger, to chase safety over truth, to choose comfort instead of clarity, to sedate instead of standing in your sovereignty. But the issue was never the emotion itself. Emotions are just signals. The real issue is where your energy goes, the way you keep pouring it into past regrets, future worries, other people's expectations, and systems designed to drain you dry. That's the leak. That's where your power bleeds out. And once your energy leaks, your perception gets cloudy. And when your perception gets cloudy, you can't see truth anymore. So you fall for the lie. You believe the illusion. You reinforce the cage you were born into. And suddenly, you're not reacting to reality anymore. You're reacting to the meaning your mind assigned to it. That's where the loop begins. Someone throws a careless insult at you. You feel rage. Not because of the words themselves, but because they landed on a part of you that was still raw. Someone ignores your message. You spiral into self-doubt. Not because their silence is personal, but because part of you still measures your worth by how visible you are. That's the formula. External event, internal wound, emotional hijack. But once you understand that formula, you can dismantle it. You can stop the chain reaction. You can finally break the spell. Here's the mind-bending truth. No event in this world has any meaning until your mind assigns one. And the moment you realize you can choose that meaning, everything changes. Because your reactions shape the world around you. Every word, every decision, every path you take, it's all built on how you react. And most people never question why they react the way they do. Think about the last time someone cut you off in traffic. Did you feel your hands tighten around the steering wheel? Did you feel that pulse of heat run through your chest? Maybe you even muttered something under your breath. That entire reaction unfolded before your logical brain even had a chance to weigh in. That wasn't thought. That was pattern. Now, picture receiving good news, an unexpected bonus, a friend's heartfelt compliment, a dream opportunity. Your heart races, your breath changes, you feel lighter. Again, no conscious decision, just a surge of automatic reaction. That's your nervous system in action, running programs that have been rehearsed 1,000 times before. These patterns didn't appear overnight. They were written into you long before you ever knew you had a say. It started in childhood. A baby cries and gets fed, cries again and gets comfort, cries and gets ignored. Either way, the brain makes a connection, and that connection becomes a highway for future reactions. You layer on more as you grow. Your parents' habits, their ways of dealing with stress, the way they handled conflict or love. You learned from every word, every tone, every silence. Then came school, friends, heartbreaks, workplaces, all of them laying bricks in the foundation of how you show up in the world today. Reactions are survival tools. They're shortcuts the brain uses to help you navigate quickly, and in the wild, that's necessary. If danger shows up, you don't want to be debating philosophy, you want to move. But in everyday life, those same survival responses can become traps. That adrenaline rush that once helped your ancestors escape predators now kicks in during meetings, arguments, or when your boss sends you a vague email. Your biology hasn't caught up to your reality. Here's what's wild though. You can change the pattern. Your brain is a shapeshifter. It's not set in stone. The same way a river can carve new channels through rock, your thoughts can forge new neural pathways. And it starts with awareness. Simple, honest awareness. Notice your reactions. Don't judge them. Observe them. Watch what lights the fuse inside you. Is it certain words? Certain types of silence? Specific tones of voice? Maybe it's the way someone phrases a question or doesn't respond fast enough. Track the tension in your body. Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach drop? These are the breadcrumbs. Behind every big emotion is a memory, a belief, a meaning. That's why sometimes your reactions feel way too big for the moment, because you're not just reacting to now, you're reacting to every time before. You're responding to a backlog of experiences your body never got to release. But emotions aren't villains. They're messengers. They're trying to show you where you're still holding weight, where you're still tangled in the past. The goal isn't to shut them down. The goal is to use them, to let them guide you toward clarity instead of chaos. When you pause between trigger and response, you create a moment of choice, and that moment changes everything. It's like building a muscle. Every time you interrupt an old reaction, every time you choose a different response, you reinforce a new pathway. It's slow at first, like carving a trail through dense forest, but over time, that trail becomes a road, and that road becomes your new reality. Your reactions are clues. They show you what matters to you. They reveal your values, your wounds, your story. And when you trace them back, you begin to uncover something deeper. You're not broken, you're just patterned, and patterns can be changed. The way you see the world, that's everything. Your mind is like a mirror. It doesn't reflect what's out there. It reflects what you believe. If your mirror is clean, you see reality clearly. If it's covered in the dust of old beliefs, it warps everything. And that distorted image becomes your reality. Fear, stress, anxiety, they're all reflections in a bent mirror. The good news? You can clean it. You can tilt it. You can question what it's showing you. Let's keep going with that mirror. Most people walk around reacting to life like it's this big, uncontrollable force constantly battering them. But really, it's just reflecting their own beliefs back at them. You think the world is hostile, and suddenly everything feels like a threat. You expect rejection, and somehow, even neutral interactions sting. That's not fate, it's projection. And the mirror doesn't lie. It simply shows what's already inside you. Now let's talk about energy, because the way you see the world through that mirror, it directly impacts how much energy you have to move through it. See, most people think energy is just about sleep, food, exercise. And yes, those things matter. But what really drains people, what exhausts the spirit, isn't physical, it's emotional, it's mental. It's the constant output of leaking energy into unresolved wounds, pointless battles, imaginary futures, and fake identities. That's where people lose themselves. Every time you try to prove something to someone who's already decided what they think of you, you spend energy. Every time you go over a conversation in your head, imagining different ways it could have gone, you spend energy. Every time you perform for approval or try to decode someone's silence, you're handing over your power like spare change. But here's the wild part. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what's actually happening and what you're imagining. If you believe you're tired, your body starts responding like it's true. If you believe you're helpless, your energy system starts to shut down. Your beliefs aren't just thoughts, they're blueprints. They trigger your biochemistry. They create your experience. Your mirror isn't just showing the world, it's shaping it. And when that mirror gets dusty, when it's smudged with the fingerprints of old conditioning, childhood trauma, societal expectations, it distorts everything. Suddenly, a challenge feels like a catastrophe. A small delay feels like rejection. A single word becomes a personal attack. And then your energy reacts. You tighten up, you pull back, you shrink. Not because reality is too much, but because the version of it you're seeing is too heavy to carry. The key is to stop trying to change the mirror by yelling at it. You don't fix your reflection by attacking the image. You wipe the mirror. You shift the angle. You question the belief behind the reaction. That's how you reclaim your clarity and your energy. Let's pause here and look at stress. Stress is a feedback loop between your mind, your perception, and your nervous system. It's not caused by what's happening. It's caused by how your system interprets what's happening. A deadline? That's just a moment in time. But if your mirror shows you failure, panic, unworthiness, then your body reacts accordingly. Adrenaline, cortisol, tension. You start running from a lion that doesn't exist, but shift your reflection and everything changes. That same deadline becomes a chance to shine. That same challenge becomes a doorway. And your energy? It rises, because now you're not fighting shadows, you're engaging with reality. This is why two people can experience the same event and respond in completely different ways. One collapses, the other grows stronger. It's not the event, it's the meaning they assign to it. It's the story they tell themselves in the split second after the moment lands. And stories are sticky. They become grooves in your brain, neural pathways reinforced by repetition and emotion. But just because a story has played 1,000 times doesn't mean it's true. You can write a new one. You can direct your energy differently. That's your power. When your energy is low, don't just assume you're broken or weak. Ask the deeper question. What belief am I holding that's costing me energy? What truth am I avoiding that's pulling me down? What old story am I keeping alive through habit? Sometimes what looks like tiredness is actually boredom. Sometimes it's resistance. Sometimes it's fear dressed up as apathy. The body doesn't lie, but the mind loves to make excuses. And until you clear the mirror, the excuses will feel like facts. Let's bring it down to a practical level. You can start mapping your energy the same way you'd track finances. What gives you energy? What drains it? Which people leave you feeling full? Which ones leave you second-guessing yourself? What routines build you up? Which habits hollow you out? Just like a budget, If you're constantly spending more than you're generating, you'll end up bankrupt. Spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and no amount of sleep or coffee will fix that. But you can also build energy reserves. You can develop practices that restore and reinforce your system. That means boundaries. That means truth-telling. That means spending less time explaining your worth to people who've already decided you don't have any. You don't need to defend your light. Just stop shining it in rooms where the windows are closed. Now, let's talk about the illusion of control. Most people operate with this idea that they're in control of their lives, that they're making decisions freely, that they're consciously choosing their path. But if you zoom in, you'll see something else. You'll see that most decisions were already made long before they reached your conscious mind. Your conditioning made them. Your trauma made them. Your upbringing made them. Your fear of not being enough made them. You think you chose that job? That relationship? That routine? Maybe. Or maybe you just followed the script that felt safest. Maybe you've been playing a character your whole life and calling it you. Science has shown that the brain often decides before you do. It's operating in the background, running code that was written by your environment, your history, your culture. Free will, in many cases, is just the rational mind catching up to a decision that's already been made. But that's not bad news. That's the beginning of liberation. Because when you see that you're not as in control as you thought, you also see the opportunity to influence what happens next, to rewire the script, to become aware of the patterns and then disrupt them. Because here's the deeper truth. The world was never under your control to begin with. Not the timing, not the people, not the outcomes, not even your own emotions. What you can influence, what you do have dominion over, is your attention, your perspective, your response. And that's not nothing. That's everything. Think of life like a river. You don't control the current. You don't dictate the flow. But you can learn how to swim. You can learn to float. You can navigate. You can become a master of your own movement within the current. And that's where your real power is. It's not in controlling the water. It's in learning how to move through it without losing yourself. The need for control is a trauma response. It comes from fear. Fear of pain, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But life isn't meant to be gripped. It's meant to be danced with. You can't hold the wind, but you can learn to move with it. And when you finally release the need to micromanage the uncontrollable, you get your energy back. You get your presence back. You stop being in your head, and you land back in your life. Look at your daily existence. How much of it is driven by trying to hold things together that were never meant to be controlled? Trying to make people like you, trying to force outcomes, trying to predict everything before it happens. That's exhausting. That's where the real burnout lives, not in what you're doing, but in the energy it costs to keep pretending you're in control. Let's go one step further. Most of the structures we rely on, money, time, status, they're imaginary, social constructs, tools we created to make sense of the world, and yet we base our entire sense of self on them. I'm valuable because I earn this much. I'm worthy because I'm productive. I'm lovable because I look a certain way. All illusions, all mirror reflections of an image that someone else painted. You are not your income. You are not your social media. You are not your productivity. You are the awareness behind all of it, the one watching the movie, not the character in it. And the moment you remember that, you stop giving your power away to things that can change in an instant. This is why energy mastery is so vital. Because your energy is the currency of your life. And every moment you spend feeding a false identity, defending an outdated belief, or fighting for something that doesn't even matter, you're going broke. But here's the miracle. You can always rebuild. Energy regenerates. Clarity returns. Presence is always available. All you have to do is stop giving yourself away to the noise. Come home. Return to the place inside you that doesn't need to prove, doesn't need to impress, doesn't need to control. That's where your power lives. Not in what you can manipulate, but in what you can see. The mirror is always reflecting. The question is, are you brave enough to look? Let's talk about identity, because that's one of the biggest illusions holding people hostage. We think we are what we do. We think we are what we believe. We think we are our roles, our status, our history. But identity, for most people, is just a costume, a carefully stitched up creation made of memories, conditioning, survival mechanisms, and social validation. And the tighter you hold on to it, the smaller your world becomes. Most people don't notice they've been living inside a box. The box is built with labels. I'm the responsible one. I'm the shy one. I'm bad with money. I'm always the peacemaker. I never get angry. Each one seems harmless on its own, but together they become bars. You don't live your life. You live your labels. And then life tries to pull you into growth. A challenge shows up. A new opportunity arises. But if it doesn't match the story you've told yourself, you reject it. Not because it's not right, but because it threatens the identity you've become attached to. That's how identity becomes a cage. It stops you from evolving. It locks you into a version of yourself that may have never even been real. Let's say someone identifies as health conscious. That's great, until the identity becomes so rigid that they feel guilty for enjoying cake at their own birthday. Suddenly, the pleasure is gone, replaced by shame. Not because the food is the problem, but because it didn't fit the self-image. And the energy it takes to maintain that self-image? That's the real cost. We perform our identities like actors, repeating the same lines, reacting the same way, showing up how we think we're supposed to, not how we really are. And the more you repeat the performance, the more real it feels. But deep down, you know it's not the whole truth. Look at social media. We curate these versions of ourselves, highlight reels, clever captions, filtered realities, and then we exhaust ourselves trying to live up to the character we created. We start managing a brand instead of living a life. And the more you invest in that illusion, the more terrifying it becomes to let it go. Because who are you if you're not that? Here's the answer. You're the awareness that notices the performance. You're not the mask. You're the one beneath it. The one who feels the tension when pretending. The one who longs for something more real. The one who watches your own reactions and thinks, that didn't feel like me. That's your signal. That's your truth. And it's trying to get your attention. The paradox is that real strength doesn't come from reinforcing identity. It comes from loosening your grip on it. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to stop clinging to who you think you're supposed to be. When you release the need to always be consistent, you create space for authenticity. You can be confident one day and unsure the next. You can be spiritual and still get angry. You can be kind and still say no. You're not meant to be a perfectly consistent brand. You're meant to be fluid, like water. You're meant to change, to move, to expand beyond what people expect. Look at children. Before they learn to perform, they're completely themselves. They shift from joy to sadness, to curiosity to frustration without shame. They're not worried about being too much or not enough. They just are. But somewhere along the line, we trade that freedom for approval. We learn that certain parts of us are acceptable and others are not. And so, we edit ourselves to fit the mold. The process of unlearning that editing, that's where freedom begins. It starts by questioning every time you say, I am or I'm not. Every time you hear yourself say, that's just who I am, stop and ask, is it really? Or is it just a story I've been telling myself so long that I forgot it was a story? Notice where your identity keeps you stuck. Is it keeping you in relationships that don't serve you because you're not a quitter? Is it making you reject opportunities because you've never been the bold type? Is it making you ignore your needs because you're always the strong one? Let it go, because your true nature, who you are when no one's watching, when you stop trying, when you just be, that part of you doesn't need a label. It doesn't need a box. It doesn't need to prove anything. That's the real you. And the more you let that version breathe, the more energy you reclaim. Letting go of identity doesn't mean becoming empty. It means becoming open. It means being real. And when you're real, your energy flows again. Your creativity wakes up. Your intuition sharpens. You start making decisions not from habit or fear, but from presence, from clarity, from sovereignty. Speaking of sovereignty, let's take it deeper. Sovereignty isn't about dominance. It's not about being better or louder or more powerful than others. It's about being the authority of your own experience. It's about trusting your own inner compass more than the noise around you. It's about knowing that your truth is valid, even if no one else sees it. Most people outsource their power without even realizing it. They give it to friends, to bosses, to experts, to influencers, to family. What do you think I should do? Is this okay? Do you approve? And little by little, they drift away from their center, from their knowing. But sovereignty brings you home. It brings you back to the seat of your own wisdom. It teaches you to listen, really listen to yourself, to feel the yes in your body, to honor the no, even when it disappoints others. Sovereignty means you stop asking for permission to live your life. You stop waiting for applause before you move. You stop needing validation before you follow your own truth. It starts with small things, like saying no without explaining, like choosing silence over defense, like honoring your needs even when they're inconvenient. These are the moments where sovereignty is born. Your energy belongs to you. Your time, your attention, your truth, they're yours to guard, and you don't owe them to anyone who hasn't earned the right to receive them. That doesn't make you selfish. That makes you sovereign. Let's talk boundaries, because sovereignty without boundaries is like a kingdom with no walls. You need to know where you end and others begin. And not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You need to be able to say, that doesn't work for me, and not collapse when someone pushes back. A boundary isn't a punishment. It's a declaration of self-respect. It's a way of saying, I value my energy enough to protect it. And when you set them, not out of fear, but out of love for your own well-being, you start to feel the difference immediately. You stop leaking energy into situations that don't deserve it. You stop carrying guilt for other people's emotions. You stop making yourself small just to keep the peace. Sovereignty also means you stop explaining yourself to people who aren't truly listening. You don't owe long paragraphs. You don't need to be understood by everyone. Some people will misunderstand you, no matter how carefully you speak. That's okay. Let them. You're not here to convince. You're here to live your truth. And here's something else. You can be sovereign and connected. This isn't about becoming isolated. It's about choosing your connections consciously. It's about engaging from fullness, not lack, from wholeness, not need. The relationships that thrive in this space, they're next level, because they're not built on control, guilt, or performance. They're built on mutual respect, freedom, and truth. You don't have to shrink to fit each other. You don't have to fake alignment. You just meet as whole humans and grow from there. That's the beauty of sovereignty. It doesn't close you off. It opens you up to the kind of love, creativity, and clarity that can only exist when you're no longer abandoning yourself. And the more you stand in your sovereignty, the more life meets you there. new opportunities show up. Old patterns fall away. People begin to treat you differently, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. Sovereignty is quiet power. It's not the loudest voice in the room. It's the clearest, the calmest, the one that doesn't waver when storms roll in, because it's rooted, it's anchored in truth. And that kind of power? It can't be taken. It can only be surrendered. And once you stop giving it away, you become unshakable. Let's shift now into something practical and powerful. Your energy. Your energy is your wealth. It's your time, your attention, your clarity, your drive, your intuition. It's everything. And if you don't know how to manage it, protect it, and expand it, you're not really free. You're just surviving. Think of your energy like the main currency of your life. Every decision you make either invests it, drains it, or replenishes it. The problem is that most people spend their entire lives unconsciously leaking energy into black holes. Old arguments, past regrets, future fears, imaginary conversations, validation loops, toxic dynamics, and endless distraction. Every time you say yes to something you don't really want to do, you make a withdrawal. Every time you hold back your truth to avoid conflict, you leak more. Every time you try to prove your worth to someone who isn't even paying attention, you hemorrhage what should have been preserved for your own becoming. Let's say you start your day with a full battery, 100% energy. That's your baseline. But then you spend 20% worrying about what someone meant by a comment they left. Another 10% goes into scrolling social media, comparing your life to curated images that don't even reflect reality. 15% drains away in self-doubt, triggered by a conversation from yesterday. Before you even reach midday, you're operating on scraps. Now imagine if that same energy went toward building something, toward your clarity, toward your health, toward your dreams, toward presence. Imagine if instead of leaking energy on people who don't see you, you poured it into becoming someone you are proud to be. That's not fantasy. That's what becomes possible when you begin managing your energy like it matters. Because it does. It's the most valuable thing you have. Start tracking it, like a ledger. Begin to notice which activities fill your cup and which ones empty it. Which conversations feel like sunlight and which ones leave you emotionally sunburned. Who are you around when you feel more alive? Who do you leave feeling hollow? Noticing is the first step. Protecting comes next. You protect your energy through boundaries, rituals, and honesty. That means not giving access to people who don't treat your presence as sacred. That means creating buffer time between events, so you're not rushing and depleted. That means telling the truth instead of managing everyone else's feelings at the expense of your own. You also protect it by choosing where to place your attention. Your focus is your energy in motion. Wherever it goes, your power flows. And the world is designed to hijack it. Endless notifications, dopamine loops, clickbait, emotional manipulation. Every second you give to those things is a second you don't get back. But when you anchor your focus, when you choose your center and return to it again and again, you begin to feel the difference. Life slows down. Presence returns. Your decisions get cleaner. Your movements become intentional. You stop reacting and start creating. That's the real shift, from reactivity to authorship, from victimhood to vision, from chaos to command. And here's the key. You don't need to be perfect. This isn't about becoming some hyper-optimized machine who never slips. It's about becoming aware of your leaks and patching them up one by one. It's about honoring your energy enough to be conscious with it instead of letting it be drained by default. There are tools. Breathing, movement, nature, stillness, creative expression. All of these recharge you when practiced with presence. They help you remember that energy is not just about doing. It's also about receiving, restoring, and aligning. Let's look at alignment for a second. Because when your life is aligned, when your values, your choices, and your actions all point in the same direction, you generate more energy naturally. There's no inner conflict draining you, no split attention, no pretending. Just flow. But most people live in misalignment. They work jobs that go against their spirit. They stay in relationships that dim their light. They say one thing and feel another. And that internal dissonance, it's one of the biggest energy leaks of all. You can't feel fully alive if your life is a performance. You can't feel free if you're building your world around someone else's expectations. So ask yourself, where am I out of alignment? What am I doing that doesn't feel true? What am I holding on to that no longer fits? And then, take action. Not all at once, not recklessly, but deliberately, slowly, intentionally. One decision at a time. That's how you get your energy back. Not by snapping your fingers, but by returning piece by piece to what feels right. Let's take it even further now, because there's a layer beneath all of this, and it's the nervous system. Your nervous system is the gatekeeper of your energy. It's the operating system behind your reactions, your resilience, your sense of safety. And if your nervous system is dysregulated, you will not feel powerful. You will not feel centered. You will not feel safe, even if everything around you is technically fine. And this is important. A lot of people's nervous systems are stuck in survival mode. They've been on high alert for so long that anxiety feels normal. They're so used to bracing for impact that even peace feels suspicious. This hypervigilance, this low-grade panic, leaks energy like a punctured tire. And it doesn't go away just because you tell yourself to calm down. You have to retrain your system to believe that safety is possible. You have to rewire your responses to stress, not just suppress them. And that starts small, with breath, with movement, with grounding practices, with moments of stillness where you remind your body, we are safe, we are not in danger, we do not need to clench, we do not need to perform. Your system needs proof, not pep talks, so give it proof. Create environments that support calm, eliminate inputs that trigger chaos. Simplify your life until your body believes you again. Because when your nervous system relaxes, your energy returns. When your energy returns, your clarity sharpens. And when your clarity sharpens, you start moving differently. With confidence, with peace, with depth. That's when you become magnetic, not because you're forcing anything, but because you're in flow with yourself. Now, let's talk about the deeper rewiring that happens when you stop leaking energy. Because once you've patched the holes, once you've reclaimed your focus and restored your nervous system, something incredible begins to unfold. Your mind starts to rewire. The brain is not fixed, it's plastic. It adapts, it evolves, it reshapes itself in response to what you feed it. And every time you choose presence over panic, sovereignty over performance, clarity over confusion, you're building new neural pathways. You're teaching your brain a new story about who you are and what's possible. You become less reactive. You pause more often. You see patterns that used to be invisible. You stop needing external validation. You stop chasing people who don't choose you. You become emotionally self-sufficient, not cold, but whole. And from that place, your life changes. Not just on the surface, but at the root. Your relationships evolve. Your work becomes more meaningful. Your choices reflect your truth. And you stop betraying yourself for comfort. This is what energy mastery really is. It's not about having endless motivation. It's about understanding the mechanics of your internal world, how your body, mind, and spirit interact, and learning to move in alignment with them. It's about knowing when to push and when to rest, when to speak and when to listen, when to take action and when to let go. It's the art of becoming your own source of energy, your own source of clarity, your own source of power. And it's available to you now. Not after a promotion, not after approval, not after you reach some arbitrary milestone. Now, in this moment, in this breath, all you have to do is stop giving your energy away to illusions and start investing it in truth. Because here's the thing, your energy is your revolution. It's the quiet uprising that changes everything, not by force, but by alignment, not by screaming louder, but by vibrating higher. And when you walk through the world like that, unapologetically whole, fully present, rooted in sovereignty, everything starts to shift. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Let's finish where all real transformation begins, waking up. Not in the physical sense, but the deeper awakening. The moment you realize that most of what you were taught to believe about life, success, happiness, power, and even yourself was never the whole truth. It was a script, a series of stories passed down from generations who were also just trying to survive. Systems built on repetition, not reflection. Narratives designed for control, not for consciousness. But once you see it, once the veil lifts, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to sleep. It might start as a quiet whisper, a small voice that says, "This doesn't feel right." Maybe it's when the job you were told to chase leaves you empty. Maybe it's when you realize that your social media likes don't fill the hollow space inside. Maybe it's when the relationships you've bent yourself to fit into still don't make you feel safe or seen or free. That discomfort, it's not a flaw, it's the invitation. It's life knocking on the walls of your constructed identity, asking, "Are you ready to come home yet?" And most people will ignore it. They'll double down on the distractions. They'll drown the voice in busyness, in performance, in substances, in scrolling. Because waking up hurts. It burns away illusion. It asks you to take responsibility, not just for your actions, but for your attention, your energy, your beliefs. And that level of self-responsibility, it's rare, because it means you can't blame anyone else for how your life feels. It means facing your own shadows. It means dismantling the narratives that kept you safe, but also kept you small. But here's the reward. When you wake up, when you truly commit to seeing clearly, you reclaim everything that was always yours. You remember your power, not the kind the world gives and takes, but the kind that never needed external validation to begin with. You remember your worth, not because of how you look, how much you've done, or how people treat you, but because you exist. You remember your voice, not the one molded by politeness and fear, but the one born from truth. And in that remembering, you rise. You begin to live with presence, with clarity, with deep inner peace. Not because your life is perfect, but because you are no longer trying to perfect it for everyone else. You're no longer measuring yourself against systems that were never designed to celebrate your wholeness. You step out of the matrix, not just the external one, but the internal one, the one made of your own doubts, your old programming, the voices that said you weren't enough unless you were performing, producing, pleasing. And now you know they were wrong. You were never meant to live someone else's life. You were never meant to fit into boxes that shrink your spirit. You were never meant to burn out chasing dreams that were handed to you, not chosen by you. You were meant to create, to feel, to live fully, to move through the world with discernment and grace, to trust your intuition like it's sacred, because it is. This doesn't mean you'll never face darkness. It means you'll meet the darkness with light, with awareness, with the knowing that nothing outside of you can truly steal what's inside of you, unless you hand it over. You begin to move with intention. You start noticing the subtle things, where your attention goes, how your body reacts, when your truth rises, and when you push it down. And with every moment of noticing, you take another step into your sovereignty. You stop arguing with reality. You stop needing to control every outcome. You stop needing the world to confirm that you're okay, because you already are. And in that space, you begin to make different choices. You say no when something dishonors your spirit, not with guilt, but with grace. You say yes to your joy, even when it's inconvenient, even when it looks different from what others expect. You release people, not out of resentment, but out of reverence for your energy. You walk away from systems, not in anger, but in alignment. And as you do, you begin to attract differently, not because you changed the world, but because you stopped letting the world change you. You become a quiet revolution, a living permission slip for others to reclaim themselves too, because energy is contagious. And when your energy is clear, sovereign, rooted in truth, others feel it. They might not know what shifted, but they'll feel safer around you. More awake, more curious, and some of them, they'll begin to rise too. This is how change really happens. Not from the top down, but from the inside out. Not from control, but from coherence. Not from preaching, but from presence. And so, you keep walking, through uncertainty, through change, through the noise, anchored in something deeper. Not your identity, not your ego, not your achievements, but your essence. Because once you taste that essence, that peace that lives beneath the surface of all striving, you'll never trade it again. You'll never barter it for applause or belonging. You'll never compress it just to be accepted. You'll know better. You'll live better. And when challenges come, as they always do, you won't collapse. You won't crumble. You won't lose yourself, because you'll know who you are, even when everything else falls away. That is real power. That is real freedom. And it begins now, not tomorrow, not when life is easier, not when you feel ready, but now in this breath. So here's your reminder, your anchor, your invitation. You are not your thoughts. You're not your labels. You're not your fears. You are the awareness behind them. You are the presence that notices the noise and chooses silence. You are the energy that cannot be destroyed, only redirected. You are the miracle you've been waiting for. No one's coming to save you because you were never broken to begin with. But you can choose to save your energy. You can choose to save your attention. You can choose to come home to yourself again and again until that home is the only place you trust. So pause, breathe, place your hands on your heart. Feel what's already here, this quiet aliveness, this sacred clarity. Let it be enough. Then build your life around that. Not performance, not pressure, not proving, just presence. That's the path forward. That's how we change the world, one conscious, sovereign, aligned being at a time. And it starts with you.